Hey, what's going on, everybody? Mark from Rams Up here. OTA's ongoing. They're headed to Maui soon, and roster battles underway. And that's what I'm going to do this episode is focus in on the roster battles that we should be aware of. And they're not going to be settled for quite a while through the exhibition season, preseason, and all that. But what are the ones that we should be keeping an eye on? And I think some of them are pretty obvious, other ones not so much. A lot of sorting out to do, that is for sure. Now, it's episode 754 on the podcast. Can't believe we're getting close to 800 here. Let's talk about a player who wore number 54, and we're in those mid 50s, so we're talking about a lot of linebackers, and that's the case here. Let's talk about number 54, Leonard Floyd. Floyd, 6'3", 240 pounds out of Georgia. I thought he was bigger than that. The ninth pick in the 2016 draft by the Bears, spent 4 years there, 18 and a half sacks. And then on April 24th, 2020, the Rams signed him to a 1-year, $10 million contract. They re-upped the following year, a 4-year extension for $64 million, and then eventually released by the Rams in March of 2023. That was after that dreadful season, 5-12 season, where they did a mini purge there. But Floyd had a good career with the Rams, 3 years, 29 sacks, and after that he went on to play for Buffalo and the 49ers 1 year each, and now he is with the Bears. But had 5 tackles and 1 sack in that Super Bowl win over the Bengals. So Leonard Floyd, really impactful player, great player actually, part of an incredible defense. Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, and Leonard Floyd all in the same defense. Leonard Floyd, our number 54. And that leads me to a trivia question as I was looking through his career. Something dawned on me. I'm going to give you this whole episode to think on this. In the 2016 draft, 4 of the top 9 picks have played for the Rams. 3 of them had significant impacts on the Rams, including Floyd. I gave one of them away to you. A couple of them should be pretty easy. Maybe all of them are easy, but 4 of the top 9 picks in that year's draft ended up playing for the Rams. So I'll let you think on that. In the meantime, let's walk through these roster battles. And the first one I want to talk about is quarterback and Stetson Bennett. Who is he battling? He's battling himself, really. Rams carry 3 quarterbacks usually. Some teams carry 2. Move Stetson Bennett to the practice squad, perhaps. I don't know if people are going to be jumping all over him to add them to their roster. So he'd be a safe bet to make it through waivers and get on the Rams practice squad, or do they keep him as part of the 53? And I know I've discussed Bennett, I think in my first roster prediction, way too early roster prediction, the entire 53-man roster, I identified Bennett as one of those 53 and got some pushback on that, and I understand that completely. He's certainly not a roster lock, but we'll have to see in the preseason. He'll have to earn that 53rd spot, and the problem is, if you got outside linebackers, defensive linemen, guys in the secondary that can contribute on special teams and show promise. Stetson Bennett's essentially battling all of those guys for a spot on this roster, battling himself. He's going to have to play well in the preseason, better than he did last year. And I'm kind of pulling for him, but it's kind of on Stetson to step up and produce in the preseason. Next up, if you look at the running back situation, Kyren Williams is going to be the number 1 guy going in. And Ronnie Rivers is going to be the number 4 guy if he makes the roster, and I'm sure he will at this point. Does Jarquez Hunter have a chance of supplanting Blake Corum as the number 2 back? I think he does, and we'll have to see. It's going to be a roster battle for sure. Who is the number 2 running back? my money's still on Corum because in the past, the Rams draft a running back. They did this with Kyron, barely saw the field his rookie season. Same with Blake Corum last year. Because they drafted Hunter isn't necessarily a slight on Blake Corum, in my opinion. I think we saw enough in games from Corum to indicate he can be a pretty darn good running back, but the Rams have definitely seen more of Blake Corum than we have. And they draft running backs every year. So you can't read too much into the fact that they drafted Hunter, but there's certainly going to be a roster battle here going on between these two. Now, moving on, and you could also say there's a roster battle for the number 4 spot. But I think Ronnie Rivers has a big edge over Cody Schrader and any street free agents they bring in to compete for that position. Now, moving on to the wide receiver roster battle, I think we can all agree that the top 4 guys it's pretty clear who they are. And I have on the YouTube channel here, I got 3 guys: Xavier Smith, Konate, Mumfield, and Britton Covey. It's it kind of blends into the return game special teams as well, because Smith and Covey are going to be battling for return duties. I think Covey's going to have a big edge there. So, they could keep Smith and Covey, but that would indicate maybe not Mumfield, or do they keep just Covey over Smith or Smith over Covey and keep Mumfield as well? Remember, Mumfield's a 7th round draft pick, but I think it would be difficult to get him through waivers onto the practice squad is my gut feeling on that. So there's a battle going on between all 3 of these guys. All 3 of them could make it. My guess is 2 of the 3, though. So who is going to be the odd man out? And, the strike against Mumfield is he, as far as I know, I don't think he's under heavy consideration in the return game. I could be wrong on that. We'll have to see. But, and I only say that because Smith and Covey are well established as pretty darn good return guys. Now moving on to tight end, and I think there is a brewing battle for the number 1 tight end position between Tyler Higbee and Terrence Ferguson. You got to give the nod to the veteran going in, and that'll probably be the result opening day. But Ferguson, early returns on him, early reviews is that he's going to push for that job. Now, if the Rams go 12 personnel, we're going to see both of them out there together a lot. But who's out there in 11 personnel? Week 2, week 3, week 7, very well could be Terrence Ferguson. And I think, after that, I think the pecking order is pretty clear. It's going to be Parkinson followed by Allen. Got a pretty darn good tight end group, in my opinion. Now, the roster battle at the backup offensive line, it gets a little messy here. We know who the top 5 are, and I got to cheat here and look at my notes because, I think McClendon and Quisenberry are the backup tackles, and I think that's probably going to be the result. We're looking at Quisenberry as a backup left tackle, according to the 2 depth charts I referred to, with McClendon as a backup right tackle. Take that with a grain of salt. Things could change, and I'm still not 100% satisfied with that situation. And then on the interior, I think Bo Limmer is the one guy that has nailed it down as nailed down a roster spot. Then after that, got a bunch of guys. Justin Dedich would probably be the front runner on the interior. KT Leviston, I've seen him listed as guard and tackle, so that maybe that's an advantage he has. A swing guy, but hasn't set foot on a NFL field in the preseason or regular season, so we know very little about him. Dylan McMahon, he got on the field, in that Week 18 game, and that was about it. Willie Lampkin, the undrafted free agent. A lot of love for that guy, one of the best guards in college football, just undersized. Then you got A.J. Akuri and Trey Wettig. It gets a little messy. How many are they going to carry? But I think, my money is on Dedich and then maybe Leviston or Lampkin. I don't know. It's going to be a really good battle with this group, and they're going to get a lot of opportunities in the preseason to prove that they can hold up in the NFL. And I'm going to be keeping an eye on Lampkin, and I'd like to see what Leviston brings. There's just a lot we don't know about these guys, other than we've seen a little bit of Dylan McMahon, and that's about it. And then Trey Wittig is an undrafted rookie that we should keep an eye on as well. Really hard to quantify what this roster battle is really going to look like, but just one group that we're going to have to focus on, and right from the get-go when the preseason starts. And then along the defensive line, I think it's fairly clear here who the top 5 guys are. We got Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Poona Ford, Ty Hamilton, and Tyler Davis. That's how I see it. Now, do we carry 2 additional defensive linemen or just one? It's going to be between 2 guys that have been sticking around for a little bit, Deshaun Johnson and Laurel Murchison. They could be battling for that 6th guy in the rotation. And that's the thing about the defensive line. They'll go 6 deep every game pretty much. Guys are going to get rotated in, and who provides the most value as the 6th defensive lineman. And they could carry 7. Doubtful, though. I think the battle narrows down to Deshaun and Laurel. And there's some undrafted free agents that could make a push. We'll have to see about that. But this is the roster battle here in mid-June, early June, how I see it shaking out, Johnson versus Murchison. Now, outside linebacker edge, Byron Young, Jared Verse are the top 2 guys, obviously, and Josiah Stewart is going to be on this roster. Is he going to beat out Brandon Jackson and Nick Hampton? And there's some other guys as well. But Jackson and Hampton, I think, are going to be battling for, snaps and potentially a roster spot. Now, I could see them battling Stewart. I get it, Stewart. There's high hopes for him being an impact player. Kind of felt the same way about Brandon Jackson last year, though, right? And he barely got on the field. I think it was just week 18. And he was banged up early in the year. So we don't know what we have in Brandon Jackson yet. And we don't know what we have in Josiah Stewart. We do know Stewart's going to be on this roster, though, and Nick Hampton coming back from that injury. So the way I see it, Jackson and Hampton battling for a roster spot because of their potential special teams value, guys that play this position. A good chance they carry 5, but the pecking order is going to be between Jackson, Hampton, and Stewart. A potential cut situation is going to be between Jackson and Hampton. Is that confusing? Let me say it one more time. Playing time between all 3 of them, Jackson, Hampton, and Stewart. But if someone's going to get cut, it's going to be Jackson or Hampton. I've said that 3 different ways. Hopefully you understand where I'm coming from here. Now, at the inside linebacker position, this is where it gets a little messy again. Both draft depth charts I've seen have Troy Reeder as a starter. That's our lads in ESPN. Whereas I see him as a potential cut. The only guys that I think are going to be on this roster for sure right now here in early June is Omar Speights and Pooh Paul. You got Nate Landman, you got Troy Reeder, and Sean Dolak, the undrafted free agent. All 3 of those guys will be competing for at most 4 inside linebacker spots. And so I think these 3 guys, I know they signed Landman free agent contract, and I know Reeder is highly regarded and listed as a starter. I don't expect that to be the case come opening day. One of these guys will be gone. I think Reeder would have the edge over Dolak and Landman, despite the contract they gave Landman. But they just love Troy Reeder, what he brings to the clubhouse, and he can wear the green dot, all that kind of stuff. But don't be surprised if it's Dolak that beats out one or both of these guys. Going to be fun to watch. I was surprised to see Troy Reeder listed as a starter. That's probably, a flip a coin for these guys putting together these depth charts. They're unofficial, right? I don't know if the Rams see it that way. I think the starters will end up being Spates and Paul, with the backups. Two of these guys, Dolak, Landman, and Reeder. And hey, you disagree? Let me know in the comments. I could be way off on this. I know there's not a lot of love for Reeder in among the Ramily, as we like to say, but I think there's more love for him with the Rams coaching staff. At cornerback, I'm going to cop out here. What a mess. It's not really a bad mess. It's just a lot of guys, and your guess is as good as mine. We knew who the top three are: D. Will, Kobe Durant, and Ahkello Witherspoon. After that, geez, look at all these guys they got here. I got to go to my other sheet of notes here. There's just too many names. We've got Josh Wallace. We've got Cam Lampkin, a guy I always forget about. Charles Woods, Sean Jolly, AJ Green seems to be getting a long look at OTAs. And then Quentin Lake listed on depth charts as the nickel back. We usually refer to him as a safety, and that's why it gets additionally messy how they utilize Lake. Do they bring in another cornerback / safety? We've talked about that ad nauseum. Not going to get into that again. And how many defensive backs do they carry? How is it divided between guys that can potentially play safety and cornerback and nickelback, that star position? But a bunch of guys competing for spots here, and there's some undrafted free agents that could make some noise as well. Position the Rams didn't address in the draft. A lot of guys coming back, a lot of bodies, and this is probably considered the biggest weakness on this roster. But they do have a lot of guys that are versatile and have snaps in the NFL and have proven they can play to some level. I don't think it's going to be a horrible group when all is said and done. It's going to be maybe just an average cornerback group unless they do add somebody. But, a lot of competition. Someone's going to arise and prove that they are, a decent fourth or fifth cornerback to add to this group. And safety, it kind of relates to the cornerback position. You get beyond the top three. I see Jalen McCullough as more or less a roster lock behind the two Cams, Cameron Curl, Cam Kinchins, Quentin Lake. How they could, if one of these cornerbacks we talked about play really well, or they add a Jalen Ramsey, Quentin Lake gets added to the mix here. And then maybe these two guys I'm showing here on the YouTube channel, Tanner Engel and Nate Valcarcel, would probably not have a strong shot at making this roster. But right now I see this is the battle to watch between Engel and Valcarcel as a potential fourth or fifth safety. You have to see how that plays out. And I love our top three guys. And if you're talking about Quentin Lake, our top four, after that, there's some opportunities here for guys like this, Engel and Valcarcel, and any undrafted free agents. And maybe they bring in someone as well. John Johnson's still out there. I think what the Rams do often is kind of get a look at these guys and then scratch their heads and go, we need to add somebody, which may be why they brought in David Quisenberry. Maybe they slept on it and said, we need to get someone that could potentially play left tackle for us if something dreadful happens. Oh, my trivia question. What is the answer to my trivia question? The 2016 draft, 4 of the top 9 guys selected in that draft ended up playing for the Rams. 3 of them should be pretty easy. Actually, all 4 of them should be pretty easy. It's just a matter of knowing when they were drafted. You get in the right year. They are the number 1 pick overall, Jared Goff. And we know the impact he had on this team, took us to a Super Bowl. Number 2 pick overall by the Eagles, Carson Wentz. And we'll remember him for that win over the 49ers in Santa Clara. That was pretty sweet. The 5th pick overall, the Jags selected Jalen Ramsey, and he helped us to a Super Bowl victory. And maybe coming back, maybe not. And then the guy we already talked about, Leonard Floyd, drafted 9th overall by the Chicago Bears, and he played in a Super Bowl for us as well. A Super Bowl victory over the Bengals, and like I said, had a bunch of sacks as a LA Ram, impactful player. So let me know what you think, and don't forget, please subscribe, like these videos. It really helps us out. And we'll be back in a few days. Got to get Ian back on here. It looks like it's going to be early next week. But if anything crazy happens, I'm sure he'll jump on and speak to it. I have a feeling there's going to be a roster addition here in the next few days before they head out to Maui. And that makes sense. If one of these guys is thinking about signing with the Rams, they'll sign but the day before they head to Maui. That's what I'd do. Rams in Maui, that's going to be a lot of fun. Let me know what you think. Tell me where I got it wrong, any roster battles I missed or I'm misrepresenting. Welcome the feedback out here from Rams Up.